Developing right now on Morning News Now, cities on edge. This morning, growing protests from coast to coast over President Trump's plans to deploy the National Guard to some of America's biggest cities and floats the idea of even invoking the Insurrection Act. Now, the president defending his strategy as the state of Illinois sues to keep troops out of Chicago.
I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe. Why is it that a governor wouldn't accept free help from regardless? Whether it's National Guard or the military or anybody.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the shutdown standoff now stretching into its 7th day after more failed votes in the Senate. We will take you to Washington. Also this morning, a solemn anniversary in the Middle East. Israel marking 2 years since the October 7th attacks that ignited the deadly war in Gaza. Now negotiators for Israel, Hamas, and the U.S. meeting to discuss a peace plan and a hostage deal. We'll have the latest on talks, the main sticking points, and what could come next. Plus, a Supreme Court showdown set for today over a state ban of a controversial practice known as conversion therapy. We'll break down the case that could impact millions of LGBTQ+ youth. And better together, whether it's going out to dinner or just staying in to do homework, new research shows just about anything is more fun when it's done with a friend. We'll unpack the findings that highlight the importance of our relationships. Just like the show.
There you
more
go.
Fun with
it
a friend.
Always comes back to connections. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks so much for being here. We are going to begin this Tuesday morning in Washington with this new threat from the Trump administration about the use of the military in cities around the country.
President Trump says he would consider using that rarely invoked Insurrection Act if the courts or local officials delay his plans to deploy the National Guard, mainly to cities run by Democrats. This act allows the president to use the U.S. military to conduct civilian law enforcement in certain circumstances. It was passed way back in 1807. The last time it was used was during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. The state of Illinois filed a lawsuit hoping to block the Trump administration from sending these troops to the streets of Chicago. Governor J.B. Pritzker says military intervention is dangerous and just not needed.
They need to stop inciting our city's residents. This escalation of violence is targeted and intentional and premeditated. The Trump administration is following a playbook: cause chaos, create fear and confusion. Why? To create the pretext for invoking the Insurrection Act so that he can send military troops to our city.
NBC News correspondent Alice Barr joins us now from Washington with the latest. Alice, good morning. So, we haven't seen the Insurrection Act used in more than 3 decades. A federal judge over the weekend blocked the White House from sending these National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon. Walk us through how we got to this point and what President Trump is now saying about all of it.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. So President Trump has been pushing the limits of his authority here once again and asserting that there is a state of emergency on crime in several cities across the country, largely democratically led cities, and that justifies his sending National Guard troops. The White House is asserting the troops are needed in Portland, Oregon, in Chicago as well, to quell crime and to protect federal officers and assets, citing recent threats against ICE officers who've been ramping up, of course, an immigration crackdown, and some instances of attacks on those ICE officers as well. In Portland, we've now had these 2 court rulings that have blocked National Guard troops from Oregon and from outside states from going into Portland. But given the framework Trump has set up here, he is arguing the Insurrection Act may be justified to fulfill what he wants to see from the National Guard. Here's what the president recently said.
Well, I'd do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe.
And again, that framing of public safety is how President Trump has been pushing all of this forward. Savannah, Joe.
Alice, explain to us what kind of conditions have existed in the past when this has been used and how they compare to what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look back to the 1992 Los Angeles riots. It was, many people will remember, that was very widespread around the city. Something that we've consistently heard from police in Portland is that these protests there have been contained to one city block. Also, the governor of Oregon does not want the Insurrection Act. And in that instance, in L.A., the California governor did request it. Back to you.
All right. Alice Barr. Alice, thank you so much.
Well, today is day 7 of the federal government shutdown, and lawmakers are still at this impasse when it comes to a funding deal.
The Senate on Monday rejected 2 funding bills that were on the table. One was a House-passed GOP bill to fund the government until November. The other was a Democratic alternative that would have ended up funding the government through the end of October. Now, catching members of his own party off guard, President Trump seemed to leave the door slightly open when it comes to negotiating with Democrats. That's despite all the finger-pointing among lawmakers.
The Democrats are the ones that started this, and if you think about it, it's about health care to a large extent. It's about, we want great health care for people. We don't want to give the money away to other people that come pouring into our country. We have a negotiation going on right now with the Democrats that could lead to very good things. What kind of and I'm talking about good things with regard to health care.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us with the latest here. Julie, good morning. So we're approaching the 1-week mark of the shutdown. The Senate continues to vote on measures that won't get enough support to reach this threshold. It's 60 votes. The House also still not even back in session. Where do things stand right now? Also, to the president's point there, are the White House and Democrats actually talking?
Well, we haven't seen them talking. If they are, it is certainly happening behind the scenes. And you'll note that the Senate just keeps putting the same 2 bills on the floor over and over again, last night trying to do so again. And by the bills that I'm talking about, I'm, of course, referring to the Republican bill that would essentially reopen the government for 7 weeks. It's a clean extension of government funds. And the Democratic bill that would reopen the government for about a month, but has all of those health care provisions attached to it. So far, we're seeing the same vote totals on both bills, not enough to get to that 60-vote threshold that is required in the Senate. The House, meanwhile, already has that Republican-passed bill. That's why Speaker Johnson is keeping his members home. He wants to put pressure on Senate Democrats. Take a listen to what we heard from him and then the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, in the House.
We have one plea and one plea alone. We need a handful of Democrats to stop the madness, reopen the government so that we can get to these critical debates about the year-end policy decisions with regard to the further reforms to health care.
We'll sit down anytime, any place with anyone from your administration, including the president, to get a resolution here with respect to the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which need to be extended right now.
Now, the president's comments are notable. He told me over the weekend, Savannah and Joe, that he is open to fixing the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are expiring. Republicans against just simply extending them. But certainly it's a conversation they're willing to have, maybe when the government reopens.
And Julie, while the debate continues, we are starting to see signs of the impacts of a government shutdown, notably at the airport. The FAA administration experienced staffing issues last night at airports, other air traffic control facilities around the country as well. What are we seeing? And can we expect more of this as the shutdown continues?
Look, within the first few days of the shutdown, there are perhaps pools of money, small ones, that the government can shuffle around to make this less painful for Americans. But the longer that this goes on, there's no money left to pull. The government is shut down, so you're going to see those delays at airports. TSA workers are still working, but without pay, so they could call out sick and other issues. When you're talking about the air traffic control, for example, there are already staff shortages, and DOT, the Department of Transportation, says they're not hiring additional ones during this shutdown. Food, moms and young children, that can begin drying up this week, according to experts. There are other issues in terms of Social Security checks. Those will still go out, but you could experience delays. National parks, monuments are partially closed. The Smithsonian even announcing that this upcoming weekend, they could close their doors if the shutdown is still going on. And a new memo that the White House is circulating, look, it's a draft, but they are trying to threaten, again, pressuring Democrats by saying those furloughed workers that deserve back pay, they may not get it. Now, that is not legal. It is against the law, sources that we spoke to on the Hill point out. But again, it just goes into this pressure that the White House and Republicans are trying to put on Democrats to give the votes to Republicans to reopen the government, guys.
Well, Julie, what we have you, I do want to ask about a hearing happening today on Capitol Hill. Attorney General Pam Bondi, she's set to go before the Senate Judiciary Committee and expected to face some tough questions from lawmakers about the Justice Department and political pressure coming from the White House. What's going to be on the agenda here?
Yeah, this is an oversight hearing that the Republican-led Senate Judiciary Committee is holding with Attorney General Pam Bondi. She's the only witness, so all of the focus will be on her. Republicans last night circulated some reporting that they say shows that Jack Smith, the special counsel investigating January 6th and the president's actions on that day, that he actually probed some Republicans during that investigation. So that's going to come up from that side of the aisle. And then from the Democratic side of the aisle, a chance to question the Attorney General in a moment where they feel like she is overreaching her powers and also muddying the waters between the separation between the Department of Justice and the White House when it comes to the deployment of National Guard troops to cities, federalizing law enforcement in those cities without the mayors and governors' permission in some cases, like in Illinois, like in Portland, what we saw over the weekend happen. And so she's definitely going to be in the hot seat over a number of issues. The key question from Democrats is going to be whether she is bowing to political pressure from the White House or whether she really is maintaining independence.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
In just a few hours, the Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in a case that centers on the highly controversial practice of LGBTQ+ conversion therapy. This method, popular in some conservative religious circles, tries to encourage LGBTQ+ youth to identify as heterosexual and to encourage transgender youth to identify with their sexual identity at birth. It has been widely discredited by the medical community, with many experts calling it harmful.
The justices will decide whether a law that bans conversion therapy between counselors and their clients violates the free speech clause of the First Amendment.
NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach joins us now to talk more about this. Gary, good morning. So first, let's just talk about the case itself. Who's involved here and how did this get to the Supreme Court?
Hey there, guys. Yeah, Kaylee Childs is a licensed counselor in Colorado who participates in, as you were talking about, what has become known as conversion therapy. And she has these conversations with gay and lesbian minors, trying to convert them and change their sexual orientations. And she has conversations with transgender minors and try to convert them back to their gender at birth. Now, Childs says this is talk therapy, and any ban on it infringes on her free speech, the First Amendment. The real question here is whether the ban just talks about professional conduct and regulates professional conduct, or does indeed go towards free speech. Now, the circuits here, in terms of the appeals courts, have all had different answers on this topic, which is why we're seeing it go before the Supreme Court today. The 10th Circuit says this ban is upheld as a regulation on Childs' professional conduct as a counselor in the state of Colorado. Other circuits have said it does regulate free speech.
Gary, let's talk about what the implications could be here of the court's ruling, not like just in this specific instance or with this particular issue, but like on other regulated professions where speech is a big part of it.
Yeah, think about the medical community, right? When you're a doctor talking to a client. Thinking about in clergy, if you're having a conversation that is perhaps confidential in some sort of community confidential setting there. This is a Colorado law, but there's 20 other states that have very similar laws. So what happens here and what is decided here in Colorado could be challenged in more than 20 states around the country.
And Gary, this is a court with a 6-3 conservative majority. Have they heard and decided any other cases similar to this one that might offer some clues about the outcome?
Yeah, over the past few years, the Supreme Court, critics would say, has really been chipping away at the rights of transgender individuals all around the country. That's in part because of a case last term where the Supreme Court blocked a Tennessee law that banned puberty blockers and hormone therapy for the treatment of gender dysphoria. And coming up in a few weeks at the court, that will be heard by the justices, 2 different cases involving the rights of transgender Americans to play on sports teams in college and high school. Guys.
Busy term for the Supreme Court. All right, Gary, thank you so much.
Well, in other Supreme Court news, the justices rejected Ghislaine Maxwell's challenge to her criminal conviction. I'm sure you remember Maxwell was convicted of recruiting and grooming teenage girls for sexual abuse by Jeffrey Epstein. The decision means that Maxwell's 20-year criminal sentence remains in place. In a statement, Maxwell's lawyer said they were disappointed, but that the fight isn't over. Here's what was at issue here with this particular appeal was whether the terms of a so-called non-prosecution agreement that Epstein made with former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta in Florida for him or any potential co-conspirators should apply only in the district where that was negotiated or if it was binding nationwide. The Justice Department had asked the Supreme Court to reject Maxwell's appeal.
In South Carolina, an investigation is underway into a fire that engulfed the oceanfront home of a longtime state judge. People inside the home escaped the flames by jumping out of windows into the water where they were rescued. NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist has new details on the search for answers.
You can hear the thing burning.
The cause of this massive blaze, the home of a South Carolina judge, is under investigation. The house in Edisto Beach, an hour from Charleston, went up in flames on Saturday. Crews from several fire departments raced to get it under control.
We saw the black smoke and knew that was a house, but I didn't know if it was something that was spreading down here or further up or if it was isolated.
Fire officials say 3 people escaped through an elevated first-floor window. That house sat inside a gated community here, and as you can see, it is surrounded by marshland. Those 3 people who escaped the fire had to be rescued by kayak and canoe. One survivor was airlifted to a Charleston hospital. The home is owned by Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein and her husband, a former Democratic state senator. Judge Goodstein was recently involved in a high-profile ruling temporarily blocking South Carolina from turning over voter information to the Department of Justice. State investigators haven't said how the fire started, but released a statement saying, in part, at this time there is no evidence to indicate the fire was intentionally set. Still, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham expressed concerns about political violence.
No matter what your beefs are, violence is an unacceptable response to political differences. So if it is arson, I hope they find him and put him in jail.
A local official telling NBC News the state law enforcement division took over the fire investigation at the request of the homeowner. The agency says it will share more information when the investigation concludes. Aaron Gilchrist, NBC News, Edisto Beach, South Carolina.
Well, now it's time for a look at your morning news now weather. It looks like the Northeast today, we're going to see one last, maybe, of summer.
Or it'll go on for another month. Meteorologist Rafael Miranda has the latest. Raf, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, we're waiting for that fall chill around here in the Northeast. I know it is coming, but ahead of that, we have some rain that we're dealing with. A very active weather morning in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley as well. Some showers and thunderstorms around Chicago. Watch out for some delays there. St. Louis, Indianapolis, all dealing with this rain this morning. It's all part of a cold front that's marching across the country. That's going to bring a big change to these temperatures that we've seen in the 80s over the past several days. But today we're still dry. The front off to the west. Tonight, overnight, the rain begins. Now I'm stopping this tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. That is a messy commute for along I-95 corridor here from D.C. up towards Boston. Watch out for some travel delays there. The rain could even be on the heavy side at times, and then eventually it clears the region as we head throughout the afternoon tomorrow. This is much needed rainfall. We're talking about anywhere from ½ an inch to an inch across much of the Northeast. Obviously, we've been dealing with drought conditions there. And you can see this is the temperature story here. 80s again today for one more day. And then finally, once that cold front comes through, it's going to do what cold fronts do. And they usher in that colder air more appropriate for this time of year. Temperatures back down into the 60s. And this trend continues throughout the weekend. Take a look at this. Yeah, we want to go apple picking, pumpkin picking. We could finally do that, not in the shorts and T-shirts. You can see temperatures stay in the 60s right through the weekend. Some strong storms possible in the southwest and New Mexico today. Otherwise, cool across the plains. And again, rain moving in tonight and tomorrow here in the Northeast.
So you've been warned. Last warm day for those who've been experiencing this.
Yeah, we're going to need the jackets
summer.
again.
We actually need jackets.
I love the activity suggestions, by the way.
Yes.
Apple picking, pumpkin
I love
patch.
it.
There we go. It's time. Thank you so much.
You got it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, power off. Experts weighing in on a popular screen time strategy meant to protect kids, what parents need to know.
Up first, though, after the break, a somber milestone in the Middle East. Israel marking the anniversary of the October 7th attacks as peace talks continue. Up next, we'll talk to the family of one of the hostages still being held in Gaza. Stay with us. Welcome back. Indirect peace talks are raising hopes that there is an end in sight to the war in Gaza, as today marks 2 years since the Hamas-led October 7th attack on Israel that launched this conflict. Delegates from both sides are meeting with mediators in Egypt to iron out the details of President Trump's peace plan. On Monday, the president told reporters that Hamas was making important concessions in this round of talks.
Today, Israel is marking those 2 years since the deadly Hamas attack that killed some 1,200 people with 250 hostages taken. 48 hostages are still being held in Gaza. 20 of them are believed to be alive. Gaza's health ministry says that Israel's war on Hamas has killed more than 67,000 people. Large parts of the enclave have been pushed into famine by aid blockades and devastation.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley is in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv with the latest. Matt, good morning. So how's Israel commemorating this 2-year anniversary today? What's the mood there with a deal potentially close here?
Well, you know, for many people, this is an ordinary day. For the folks here in Hostage Square, christened Hostage Square by Tel Avivians 2 years ago, this is a somber and solemn occasion. We're about to see an opposition leader who's going to be showing up. There's going to be more commemorations later on in the day throughout Israel, but this is not going to be marked as a big occasion. You know, this is a religious holiday still, and it was the same religious holiday that was going on 2 years ago when the attacks happened. So that kind of changes the mood here. Many very religious people are going to be staying at home and not attending any events. But as you mentioned, all of this is unfolding as 2 years to the day we're seeing negotiators within the end zone now, it looks like, to some sort of deal that would free those remaining hostages and bring something like a ceasefire or peace to the Gaza Strip and a full end to the fighting. And we heard from the Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they said that they can't tell whether or not there's been optimism around this. I spoke with a negotiator who was close to the negotiators. It was a mediator close to the negotiators on the Palestinian side. He told me that there is a lot of optimism on the Hamas side and that they are determined to come to some sort of deal. He said in his own assessment that it's very unlikely that Hamas was going to walk away from these negotiations now going on in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt without some sort of deal. Now, again, we've been here before. We've been close. This is by far the closest that we've seen ever since the last deal was signed earlier this year. But anything could stand in the way. There are a lot of holes in terms of the agreement, despite the fact that both sides are now having a meeting of the minds, and there's an enormous amount of momentum behind coming to some sort of deal. We don't want to be too optimistic about this. This could be scuttled at just about any time, guys.
Yeah, Matt, but certainly President Trump seems optimistic. He said yesterday, quote, "We have a really good chance of making a deal." Just where do things stand after yesterday's peace talks?
Yeah, we haven't been able to get a good read on where the peace talks stand ever since the past couple of hours. The only real names that we've gotten and information that we've gotten is from the Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they did say that they weren't able to say whether or not there was optimism surrounding these talks. But, you know, at the same time, one of the big asks that Hamas is coming to with these talks is that they want the specific identities of the prisoners, the Palestinian prisoners currently in Israeli jails, to be released. One of the main ones is Marwan Barghouti. He is a prominent Palestinian, kind of a Nelson Mandela figure among Palestinians, really the only man who can kind of bridge the gap between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, between the moderates and the extremists. But he is serving a very serious jail sentence. And some of the terms of this deal, the 20-point plan that President Trump came out with, calls for 250 Palestinian prisoners who have been convicted of major crimes, who are serving life sentences, to be released. The identity of those 250 prisoners is going to be a major topic of conversation, and one that, according to people who I know who are dealing with these negotiations, is going to be really the focus of the next couple of days.
Matt, before you go, let's talk about what is happening on the ground, because with the backdrop of these negotiations going on, Israeli attacks on Gaza continued over the weekend. Hamas's government-run media office said Israel carried out more than 130 strikes in 48 hours. Any slowdown since these peace talks really got underway yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, according to the Israelis, it sounded as though there was going to be some sort of slowdown, but now it doesn't seem like that's the case anymore. Actually, we just saw one of the most prominent, really the most prominent opposition leader here in Israel walking behind the camera, Yair Lapid. You know, that just to show how important this gathering is. You know, there is still bombardment going on in the Gaza Strip. And one of the things that President Trump is worried about, and that other people around this are worried about, is that if the Israelis continue to pummel Gaza, that it really could scuttle these negotiations that are so delicate and so sensitive right now.
All right, Matt Bradley, thank you very much.
We're joined now by Yotam Cohen. His brother Nimrod was taken captive by Hamas on October 7th, 2 years ago. He is one of the remaining hostages held in Gaza, believed to be alive. Yotam, thank you so much for joining us this morning on what I can only imagine is a tough day for you and your family. You've had to live with the knowledge that your brother is being held captive every day for the past 2 years, more than 700 days. Tell us how you and your family have been dealing with that, how you get through your life day to day.
So my little brother Nimrod was there on the 7th of October protecting the border as an IDF soldier. He was kidnapped and we knew that he was kidnapped alive. And so our main goal in the past 2 years and our main goal right now is to get him back alive. And this is what we've been doing, fighting both in Israel and outside Israel, on the media outlets, on the streets, in the Knesset, doing whatever we can to get a ceasefire, to get a hostage deal, to end the war. And I think that right now, on the 7th of October 2025, exactly 2 years after Nimrod was kidnapped, there is hope again that we might see him home very soon.
Do you kind of picture the moment of being reunited? What do you dream for that moment?
So we usually try to avoid it because obviously there has been ups and downs in the past 2 years. We almost had a deal multiple times and we were disappointed. So we just try to stay focused on the fighting. But in the past week, we've had a lot of hope that President Trump's plan is going to be leading to a permanent deal and to get all the hostages back. And we've been trying to picture what it will be like to see Nimrod again after 2 years.
Yeah, when you think about that hope, I mean, what do you hope life is like for your brother, for your family, if he is released?
So we know that his condition have been really tough. Nimrod was an IDF soldier, and we know he's been interrogated and tortured and suffered both from malnutrition and a lack of food and hygiene. But Nimrod is alive, and when he's back home, we'll be able to rehabilitate him and get him back on track and get him back, hopefully, to his normal previous life as much as possible. And that's the main focus. No matter how he comes back, if he's alive and when he's alive, we'll be able to get him back on track.
Knowing that these negotiations are happening right now, what is your message to those involved, to Israel and Hamas, also the Trump administration, as they work to end this?
So we've been seeing a lot of leadership from Trump's administration, this big plan, and I truly hope it will come true. My message for all sides, both Israeli and Palestinian, is that both sides have suffered more than enough. The Israelis, the Palestinians, we all need this to end. And the only way to end this is with a sustainable deal and a ceasefire in the end of the war, and maybe we'll see a better future for the Middle East. These ongoing talks have to end with a signed, comprehensive hostage deal that will end this. Otherwise, we'll just go back into war, back into bombardment, and more casualties will die and more people will die on both sides. This has to end.
Yotam, what do you want all of us to know about your brother?
When Nimrod was kidnapped, he was only 19. About a year after graduating high school, Nimrod is a young boy. He loves playing the Rubik's Cube, loves playing video games with friends. And I think that the most important thing is that all the hostages have become a symbol in Israel. They are well known on the streets. People feel connected to them. They look like as national heroes that they survived the last 2 years. But in the end of the day, Nimrod is just a regular person, a random person that stumbled upon that day on the border, on the Gazan border, and just happened to be kidnapped. And I want him to be my little brother again, be his usual old self again.
There's no doubt he is a hero to so many, Yotam Cohen. We appreciate your time for joining us this morning, and we are thinking of you and your family.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, it's a lesser-known treatment that could help millions of cancer patients.
Do tell someone who was just diagnosed with breast cancer if they had the potential to get IORT.
Don't even think twice. Just do it.
When we come back, why this form of targeted radiation is not as common in the U.S. This is Morning News Now.
We are back now with a look at a breast cancer treatment that a lot of us, we might not even know about this. It's a form of targeted radiation therapy. And for patients who qualify, it can be faster, it can be less physically demanding, and really importantly, less expensive than traditional radiation treatments. NBC News national correspondent Yasmin Vasugian spoke with some doctors about why this therapy is offered less in the U.S. than in other countries.
Heidi Toplansky was preparing for a hip replacement surgery, taking care of her children and her dying mother, when...
And all of a sudden I got this out of the blue routine mammogram breast cancer diagnosis.
She was diagnosed with 2 different cancers back in 2012, one in each breast. For her left, she qualified for a less common targeted treatment known as intraoperative radiation therapy, or IORT.
The way it works is, in my opinion, ingenious and amazing.
Dr. Alice Police is a breast surgical oncologist. She started 3 different IORT programs in the United States over the past 20 years. She's also Heidi's doctor.
It's targeted radiation therapy to the lumpectomy cavity.
In IORT, the dose is delivered while performing a lumpectomy right to the part of the breast where a tumor was removed. It takes 18 to 40 minutes. It's not for everyone. It's generally meant for postmenopausal women with early stage small cancers, and in some cases may require additional radiation therapy. But the ease of the procedure and the lower cost make it worthwhile for many patients.
It is such a wonderful option.
At roughly $8,000 to $10,000, it costs much less than traditional radiation therapy, which requires multiple sessions.
How did you pay for your IORT treatment?
My insurance paid for it.
But that's not always the case. While Medicare and Medicaid cover the cost of IORT, and it's a more common treatment in other countries, some private insurers in the U.S. and Medicare Advantage plans deny coverage.
We know that the recurrence rate with intraoperative radiation therapy is higher than with other methods of partial breast irradiation or whole breast.
Dr. Catherine Yashar is the president-elect of the American Society for Radiation Oncology, or ASTRO. The organization does not recommend IORT unless part of a clinical trial or registry. But NBC News spoke to roughly a dozen breast cancer surgeons who say the economics of medicine is playing a major role. Medicare reimbursement data shows that for IORT, oncologists receive less than half what they get from traditional radiation. Hospitals also charge facility fees for repeated radiation sessions. Astro says that it's not a factor in their guidelines.
We don't have control over what insurance companies decide to cover or not cover.
We also asked Astro whether they consider things like travel time, gas money, and having to take off work to get traditional treatment.
We absolutely are sensitive to the patient experience and the socioeconomics, and it is definitely more convenient for patients. But again, I think that patients have to balance that with the control rate.
For about 80% of people who undergo IORT, that's it, one and done. But for others,
sometimes we find a lymph node that's positive on final pathology, which comes a week after surgery, and the patient will go back and have whole breast radiation.
And that is what happened to Heidi Toplansky. Her full pathology report revealing additional cancerous cells after the lumpectomy, and she needed whole breast radiation.
It's like you're a piece of hamburger on a barbecue grill. So for months after the radiation, I was exhausted. I mean, the fatigue, the tired, the scar tissue.
What would you tell someone who was just diagnosed with breast cancer if they had the potential to get IORT?
Do it. Don't even think twice. Just do it.
Surgeons NBC News spoke with encourage qualifying patients to ask their physicians about IORT. It isn't without consequence. Heidi says scar tissue the size of a golf ball developed in her left breast. But research shows IORT reduces the risk of possible heart and lung problems associated with traditional radiation.
So I just think that we are missing an opportunity if we are not investing heavily in this.
Now, Heidi remains cancer-free thanks to modern medicine. And like many, hopes one day IORT will be a first line of defense in fighting breast cancer.
Thanks to Yasmin for that report.
And now for our weekly mental health check. And this week we're diving into the popular term gaslighting and some new research shining a light on how it works.
Plus, new research also suggests that we actually are happier when we do things together, even if it's like reading or just running errands.
Joining us now to help break down these mental health headlines is Dr. Scott Lyons. He's a psychologist and the CEO of the Embody Lab. Dr. Lyons, good to have you with us. So let's start out with gaslighting. For those who don't know, this is manipulating someone into maybe doubting their own memory and judgment over an extended period of time. It can happen in smaller ways, in bigger ways, and now new research from McGill and the University of Toronto suggests it's actually a learning process. So explain what that means and how that might help victims understand what's happening to them and how to deal with it.
Yeah, great to be with you both. In the past, we thought gaslighting is just a manipulation of someone else's reality, denying their reality. But what we actually have identified, it is a learning process. So it's called prediction error minimization. And what that translates to in terms of gaslighting is when someone you trust behaves in a way that doesn't match your expectations and repeatedly tells you you're the one that's confused, your brain actually updates its model of reality towards their version of the event. Your brain is learning and adapting to be in alignment with their reality to prevent greater loneliness and confusion. It's basically that the more that we trust someone else in this process, the faster that learning process happens. This is how manipulation becomes internalized.
Wow, that's really good. All right, doctor, next, some parents find it difficult to measure how much you should let your kids be on smartphones, on these devices, screen time. This is something we've talked about a lot. One psychologist is saying her #1 rule is keeping devices out of kids' bedrooms overnight. Even before there were smartphones, I had to charge my phone in the kitchen overnight. I mean, do we think this is a no-brainer for parents out there to try?
The science says do not have phones in the kids' bedrooms at all. Up to 77% of teens aren't getting enough sleep, which increases anxiety, depression, impulsivity, attention issues, even illnesses. And because kids aren't sleeping enough, they're not getting the chance to power down. Their phones are keeping their brains on alert mode, like the lighting up, the buzzing, the notifications, the anxiety of missing out on what their friends could be doing is not helping them rest and reset. So all those screens are stimulating dopamine, delaying melatonin, so affecting their sleep cycle, preventing their nervous system from essentially entering into deep rest and reset to support emotional regulation development. It's a big deal. No phones in the bedroom.
Wow.
More and more parents are realizing that's a good solution
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
So if you're not on your phone, how about doing something with someone else? Turns out we're a lot happier when we do things together. There's this new study found almost every activity, whether it's
I love this.
errand, whether it's reading a book, I hope not at the same time together, but maybe. It feels better when you're sharing it with others. Talk about why this is, because the more and more we talk about connection, the more and more we realize not just good for our mental health, it's good for our physical health too.
Yeah, we're wired for relationality. So connection isn't just emotional, as you said, it's physiological. So when we're engaging with others, we get more oxytocin, dopamine rise, cortisol levels actually drop, and our whole system moves towards regulation. And these can be things like, as you said, like parallel reading, doing bills together, commuting, connecting in any type of way actually gives us this beautiful sense of relaxation.
Love that.
Keep that in mind. Dr. Scott Lyons, good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us
Great to
this
see you,
morning.
as always.
Coming up, it's a new era of news for one of America's biggest networks.
When we come back, what we know about CBS News' newly named editor-in-chief and what this change could signal for the future of the network. This is Morning News Now.
We're back with some potentially major changes at one of the country's biggest network news operations.
That's right. Paramount Skydance says it has acquired the online news and commentary organization, The Free Press, and then also made its founder, Barry Weiss, the editor-in-chief of CBS News.
Joining us now to talk more about this is Brian Steinberg. He's a TV editor for Variety. Brian, good to have you with us. So in your article for Variety, you describe Weiss as a, quote, digital provocateur. So remind us of her background from New York Times to The Free Press, now to CBS News, and tell us, and the thing is, we do know where she stands on some current issues, which might be unusual for an editor-in-chief. Where does she stand on some current issues?
Well, she's known for, I think, tilting right of center. She's very pro-Israel, is a very anti, quote-unquote, woke, far left, cultural causes and that sort of thing. It's an unusual mix for CBS News, which is supposed to be like a down-the-middle mainstream news organization. Usually the editor-in-chief or the president doesn't espouse views or have a known kind of heterodoxy or orthodoxy of views going into the job.
Brian, there's a lot going on behind the scenes over at CBS that some of our viewers might not know about. Paramount, Skydance Paramount, its CEO is David Ellison, son of Larry Ellison, known to be this very wealthy family, making a lot of changes over there across the board. So knowing that, do we know anything sort of about like the motivation behind this appointment? Does it seem like a gamble? How's this all going to work with him at the helm?
Yeah, at a meeting with reporters just after Skydance bought Paramount earlier this year in the summer, Mr. Ellison talked about, the need to kind of hit a broader majority of viewers who are center-left and center-right. He suggested that some news is not doing that anymore. There's a lot more partisan news. But this is an odd mix. Bari Weiss doesn't have a lot of TV news know-how or savvy, how an organization works. She's, the publication, the Free Press, has about 170,000 paying subscribers. Compare that to even CBS Evening News, which is in third place on TV, that's about 4 million viewers. It's a very different, set of viewers. I'm not sure that CBS News viewers who tune in for a Jerry Seinfeld or John Fogerty interview on CBS Sunday Morning or, on the road on CBS Evening News are dying for news about woke causes and how they're wrong in this country. It's on paper, it's an unorthodox mix. And let's see how the chemistry works or not.
And there are also, though, these questions about CBS suffering in the ratings, and maybe it does have to try something completely different just because what they've been doing ratings-wise maybe hasn't been successful, even though the organization's very well respected. I have a feeling, Brian, you are hearing from no shortage of journalists over at CBS who are expressing their views about Weiss's appointment. Talk about what you're hearing. I mean, is the bigger issue her lack of TV experience and then running a TV network? Or is it more about the fact that we do know a decent amount about her views and whether that's going to influence the coverage there?
Well, CBS News is an insular place. Outsiders do not always thrive well there. They have been through, in the last 3 or 4 years, a bunch of leadership. Also there's under pressure from corporate, even before Skydance bought it. They have a great Sunday lineup, 60 Minutes, CBS Sunday Morning, Face the Nation. These are all top-rated shows. But the daily shows, CBS Morning Show and CBS Evening News, continue to be in third place. That's been going on for decades. It's not a new thing. A long time ago, CBS had the NFL. Fox got the rights, CBS lost stations, and that has hurt their ability to kind of continue things in the typical way and get first-place ratings. So they do it with other shows, too. So there's been a lot of pressure over the years. There have been many changes across the years on anchors at CBS Evening News and the CBS Morning Show. This will continue, I suspect, because third place is just not a place to be in today's world. So I think there's always been tinkering going on. This is the latest effort at tinkering. This is a very different kind of leader to bring into the mix. And CBS News, which has long had it's not a place that welcomes outsiders easily. I think it's going to be an interesting couple of months for sure.
Absolutely. Brian, also, I think, we mentioned this, but on the bottom of the screen right now, it says editor-in-chief. That's not always a position that exists in television news, you know what I mean, at some of these news networks, that particular one. So it's a little unusual, sort of like this position that's been created, and also the structure around it. Our understanding is that she will report right into David Ellison, the CEO of all of Skydance Paramount, rather than something insular in CBS News. Walk our viewers through just kind of the unusual nature of it in that regard.
Yes, it is an unusual position. She reports right to David Ellison, but there's also a CBS News president. Now, most viewers don't understand. The president of the news division usually is the one who leads and decides on resources, allocates, reporting resources, who should travel to Russia, should we preempt a show tonight because we have a breaking news report. So there's a person, Tom Sobrowski, a longtime news veteran, used to work at ABC News, longtime Disney executive, came over earlier this year to be the news division president, and now has this, he's still there and will be a partner to Bari Weiss. She reports into Ellison. He reports into the chair of TV, George Cheeks. So you have two executives, one with more knowledge, who doesn't have the reporting stature that the new editor-in-chief does. So again, it's a strange mix. We'll have to see how this goes back and forth. We're going to see this put into practice on TV as we going forward.
All right. Brian, good to have you with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, more financial news now. Tech company AppLovin is seeing red on Wall Street this morning.
CNBC's Frank Holland joins us now with why and some other money headlines. Frank, good morning.
Good morning. Great to see you both this morning. We're going to start off with shares of AppLovin. As you mentioned, under some pressure on a Bloomberg report, the SEC is investigating how the ad tech company collects user data. The agency is looking into whether it violated service agreements to push more targeted ads to consumers. Earlier this year, investors raised issues about the company alleging it force-fed the installation of apps onto people's phones. AppLovin has declined to comment on that report. The Trump administration is making another big investment in the private sector as it looks to boost supplies of some critical minerals. The government's taken a 10% stake in Trilogy Metals, a Canadian company that's exploring in Alaska for copper and other metals. Trilogy stock has more than tripled on the news, although it still has a market cap below $1 billion, making it a small cap stock. The deal follows an earlier agreement for the U.S. to buy up to 15% of rare earths producer MP Materials. And Tesla is holding an event today where it's expected to unveil a more affordable version of its top-selling Model Y SUV. The company is pushing to spark sales and regain market share as it faces increasing competition from other EV makers, especially in China. CEO Elon Musk has promised a mass-market car for years, but didn't cancel those plans last year to build an all-new EV. Major questions include the price and the range of that new car. Those are your headlines. Back over to you.
Those are important questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank.
How far can you take it? Thank you. Good to see you. Coming up, it's kind of a big deal for shoppers.
Some major retailers offering some of the biggest discounts all year ahead of, or maybe it is now, holiday shopping season. We'll show you what's on sale next on Morning News Now.
Finally, this hour, if you missed out on Amazon's famous Prime Day earlier this year, do not worry. There's an October version. It is known as Prime Big Deal Days, and it kicks off today.
It's Amazon's second biggest sale of the year. Prime members have access to exclusive discounts on a range of stuff, from beauty essentials to the latest tech and trending toys. But it's not just Amazon. Target, Walmart, and other major retailers also rolling out their own competing sales ahead of, or as I said, perhaps this is now the holiday shopping season.
Let's bring in NBC Select reporter Zoe Mallon for more on how to save as we try to spend this fall, try to do it well. Zoe, good morning.
Good morning.
It's kind of funny. It's just like, okay, we're all doing sales. Like, we just
Exactly.
decided this week it's time.
Oh,
Let's
yes.
start with Amazon and what the best deals are there.
Yes, so Amazon's Prime Big Deal Days is only open to Prime members. It lasts 2 days long, and this is one of the best times to start buying those gifts. So we're seeing amazing deals on things like the Amazon Echo Dot. We're seeing over 20% off, over 30% off on some items. We have a Shark vacuum that's on sale that's very deeply discounted. Always good if you need to upgrade your home appliances. We're also seeing some great deals on your basics, like Neutrogena creams, for example. There's also some great deals on toys right now. So if you are in the market for something for those kids, or if you want to entertain them during the holidays, we have this Magnetile set. One of our editors is actually a former preschool teacher, and she said everyone fought over these.
Oh.
Okay. There you go. You can fight online for them. All right. So other retailers are following suit. We've got Target doing this Circle Week. Are there things about it that are different from the competitors that should make you check out Target?
Yes. So Target Circle Week, this is only available to Target Circle members. And the cool thing is that if you're not a Target Circle member, but you do want access to the sale, it is free to join. There's a paid membership and a free membership, so you can start shopping today if you don't already have access. We have some sales like this Cuisinart toaster oven. One of our editors tested it. He said it replaced 3 appliances in his home. Yes. So if you need to save a little space on your kitchen counter, we also have this duvet set right here that's under $100. I actually have this on my wish list just for a little fall upgrade in your bedroom. And then we also have some great tech deals right now, like these Beats headphones under $200. And these are a great gift, or if you just need them for yourself, you might as well save.
All right, there you go. I need some in-ear ones. That's what I'm going to look for. Okay, Walmart, their turn. What about them?
Of course. So Walmart's sale is open to everybody. This is online and in stores. What's great about this is since it's online and in stores, you can buy online and pick up in store. We're seeing over 50% off from some of these really exclusive, great brands like Dyson, Calvin Klein. So you can buy anything from toys, clothing, even some groceries are on sale.
Dyson, when that goes on sale, you got to hop
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
So a lot of people might be looking at this right now and saying, like, okay, should I shop these sales now or should I wait until we get closer to Black Friday. Will the deals be better then?
So we think of it as this phased approach. You want to do it in 2 phases. You can start right now. That allows you to buy some of those items. So you don't have to buy them all in November and put everything on one paycheck. So you start now, maybe buy some stocking stuffers or buy some things for teachers or your coworkers. Then wait a little bit. Then you can get to those Black Friday sales. During those Black Friday sales, that's when we tend to see the best deals on those really expensive, big items. So think video game consoles, TVs, mattresses, furniture. So anything that's big and expensive, I'd wait till Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Any of those smaller items, maybe some gifts for yourself, you can buy right now.
Good tips. You mentioned some things that I think people were really concerned about being impacted by tariffs. Like I'm thinking specifically toys. A lot of toys are coming from China. How will that be impacted? It sounds like this might be a good time to just check some of those things off.
Absolutely. The really good news is that we're really not seeing these sales impacted negatively by tariffs. The deals aren't worse. They're really relatively similar to last year. That being said, we are expecting some of these brands to raise prices a little bit further into the fall and then once we get closer to end of November and December. So if you are worried about something going up in price, if it's already a pricey item, you should save now and you can buy it and then you don't have to worry as much in a few months.
Parents just need really good hiding spaces.
That's right. That's right.
And I will just be last minute as always. But Zoe Nallen, that was such good information. Thank you so much. For more shopping tips, scan this QR code. It's on your screen right now. Or you can also just head to NBCnews.com/select. And full disclosure here, NBC News earns a commission for purchases that are made through our links.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning, and thank you so much for starting off your Tuesday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, new escalation in President Trump's push to bring federal troops to some of America's major cities. The commander-in-chief threatening to invoke a centuries-old law to get his way. That's if the courts end up blocking his efforts to militarize places like Portland and Chicago. We'll bring you the latest. Also this morning, no end in sight to the government shutdown. Now, after nearly a week in the dark, more Americans are starting to feel the pinch. The travel troubles plaguing airports across the nation as critical staffers skip shifts without that paycheck. Plus, fresh COVID confusion, the CDC unveiling some updated guidance on this fall's COVID vaccines. Why some experts say the new rules could make it a whole lot tougher for healthy kids and adults to get protection. Later in the hour, the decision of all decisions, this mysterious message from LeBron James, his basketball fans buzzing over his future in the league just days before the regular season tips off. Is he going to retire? We'll have to wait and see.
A lot of those games, by the way, coming to NBC. We're excited about that here.
Exactly. All right. Let's begin this hour in Washington. President Trump is weighing whether to invoke a rarely used thing called the Insurrection Act, which dates back to the 19th century.
The president says that he's considering this move and the more than 200-year-old law if courts block the action he's taking or if local and state officials try and intervene in these efforts to deploy the military to mainly Democratic-run cities. Well, the Insurrection Act allows the president to use the military under certain circumstances. It's not been implemented, though, since the 1992 riots in Los Angeles. This all comes as the state of Illinois filed a lawsuit looking to block troops from being sent to Chicago. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander joins us now with the latest on all this. Hi, Peter. Good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning to both of you. President Trump, as you know, just floated using this Insurrection Act, this 19th century law. If the courts keep barring him from sending National Guard troops to cities run by Democrats. If he did, the president would be the first in 60 years to use the law that allows him to deploy troops to crack down on domestic unrest without a state's approval.
With some federal agents and protesters clashing in Chicago and Portland, Oregon, President Trump now says he would consider invoking the Insurrection Act to send the military into those cities if the courts block his deployment of National Guard troops.
We have an Insurrection Act for a reason. I do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up or governors or mayors were holding us up.
That federal law that dates back to 1807 gives the president emergency powers to deploy the military to suppress what he deems as a rebellion or civil unrest. Illinois and its Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker is suing to block Trump's plan to send roughly 200 troops to Chicago, the governor calling it an unconstitutional invasion. But a federal judge has, at least for now, declined to stop that deployment.
What Donald Trump, I believe, is trying to do, incite it so they can bring more troops in, invoke the Insurrection Act, and militarize Chicago and other major cities.
The president has also attacked Portland as a burning hellhole that he claims has been overtaken by left-wing domestic terrorists.
Portland is on fire. Portland's been on fire for years.
Targeting the Democratic-led city a day after a federal judge, a Trump nominee, blocked him from sending National Guard troops there.
I think that's all insurrection. I really think that's really criminal insurrection.
Local authorities are forcefully pushing back, saying the chaos is confined to a single downtown city block.
In America, that we don't put the military on our streets unless it's extreme circumstances, like an invasion or rebellion. And those things, they just don't exist right now in Oregon.
Just last week, President Trump urged America's top generals to use some of those cities as training grounds for the U.S. military, and as a candidate flirted with invoking the Insurrection Act to suppress unrest.
Some Republican leaders are already embracing the president's efforts. Overnight, Texas's Governor Greg Abbott posted a picture of National Guardsmen from his state heading off to other states like Oregon and Illinois to support the president's crackdown. If President Trump moves forward with the Insurrection Act, those National Guard would be granted the same law enforcement powers as local police. Savannah and Joe.
All right, Peter, thank you.
This is day 7 of the federal government shutdown, and lawmakers from both sides of the aisle remain far apart on a funding deal to reopen the government. Once again, the Senate rejected 2 funding bills yesterday that would have reopened the government until later in the fall. As for the House, well, it won't be back in session until next week. President Trump is calling on Democrats to reopen the government first before getting back to the negotiating table, though the president does seem to be open to one of the Democrats' biggest priorities when it comes to health care. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now with the latest developments. Ryan, good morning. So where do things stand now? We're nearly a week into the shutdown. Any signs of any even little progress?
I would say little, and an emphasis on the little, Joe. And the fact that the president was so open in talking about health care is an issue that needs to be addressed certainly gives some sort of sense that there is at least an area in which negotiations could begin. But at this point, neither side is talking. They're not in a room trying to hash these things out. Instead, they're still just yelling at each other over the television airways. Listen to what President Trump said about health care yesterday.
Up till now, there hasn't been a great deal of pain. There could be a great deal of pain, but up till now, there hasn't been. I will say this, just hang in there, because I think a lot of good things are going to happen. That's all I can say. I mean, I think a lot of good things could happen, and that could also pertain to health care. We are speaking with the Democrats, and some very good things could happen with respect to health care.
Now, if you listen to just that, you'd think, wow, that seems to be a breakthrough. It seems like we are making some progress. The problem here is no one knows who these Democrats are that President Trump is talking to, and he's certainly not talking to Democratic leadership. So while he's talking a good game right now publicly, there really aren't any substantive negotiations happening behind the scenes. And then President Trump also followed up with those comments that he made in the Oval Office yesterday on his social media channel by saying there's no negotiations until Democrats vote to open the government. So the sum total of all this, Joe, is we're really back where we started.
And here's an interesting wrinkle or development. You've got a Republican Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, now breaking with her own party when it comes to this funding fight. She's actually calling for action on these expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies, a key point for Democrats. How big of a deal could that be?
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting, Joe, because the reason that she's concerned about this is because of her own personal experience. She talked about how her 2 adult children could see their premiums double as a result of this hike. And let's be clear here. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not in charge of anything. She's not a part of Republican leadership, but she does have a direct line to President Trump. And she also really understands the pulse of his movement, the MAGA movement. And there are a lot of Donald Trump supporters across the country who could be in store for a huge health insurance hike if this problem is not addressed. And so I think more than anything, what it shows is that this is an issue that Republicans are going to have to deal with, whether they do it now during this part of the shutdown negotiations or they do it after. It's not an issue that they can ignore and let these premium tax credits expire at the end of the year.
And bottom line, that's the main reason Democrats are making this a key issue now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, Democrats have said over and over again that the reason that they feel that there's a fierce urgency now is because these insurance companies are setting their premium rates for next year now, and that people are going to have to make decisions about open enrollment in the next month or so. I pressed Speaker Johnson about that exact point yesterday, and he said there's still plenty of time to deal with this, that those open enrollment letters won't go out until the middle of November. That's more than a month to deal with this. Let's open the government and then have these conversations. I think what's important when you look at the back and forth here, Joe, is that prior to the shutdown, Republicans weren't talking about health care at all. They're talking about it now. They still want the government open first before those substantive negotiations. But the fact that they're even entertaining that conversation shows that the Democrats' effort here has at least had some sort of an impact.
All right. Ryan Nobles, thank you.
Well, the ongoing government shutdown is causing delays at airports across the country. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello takes a look for us at the disruption with the holiday travel season just around the corner.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, you know, we've been talking all year about the shortage of air traffic controllers, the FAA trying to staff up and train more controllers. But now we appear to have individual controllers calling out sick. That is really stressing the system. We saw it last night at Newark Airport on the East Coast, in Denver, as well as in Phoenix. Significant delays there. And then a real problem with the tower closed at Burbank Airport out in Metro Los Angeles. And now it appears we are starting to see the first impact of the government shutdown on everyday travel. Far from Washington, the government shutdown is now rippling into air traffic control towers in Newark, in Denver, and in Phoenix. Long delays due to staffing yesterday, according to the FAA. In Burbank, the air traffic control tower left completely unmanned overnight for roughly 6 hours.
We're beginning closing down the tower. Is it because of the shutdown that you guys are going? It's for staffing. Burbank Tower is closed.
Controllers in San Diego took over for Burbank, but the delays remained. California Governor Gavin Newsom blaming the president online, while in Washington, partisan fighting continues, with Republicans blaming Democrats for the shutdown.
The Democrats are the ones that started this.
As workers across the federal government, including air traffic controllers, go without pay. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says there's been a slight uptick of sick calls, resulting in flight delays.
If we have additional sick calls, we will reduce the flow consistent with a rate that's safe for the American people.
Duffy says he's heard from workers about their concerns.
They have bills they have to pay. So now they're thinking about that at the same time that they're controlling the airspace.
The National Air Traffic Controllers Union calls the ongoing crisis the latest example of how fragile the system is in the midst of a national controller shortage.
We do not have time to waste on the unnecessary distractions created by this shutdown. So our message is clear: end the shutdown.
The union says it's working with the FAA to mitigate disruptions, but the concern this morning, this could get worse, with the busy holiday travel season now just over a month away. Now, if this all kind of feels and sounds familiar, back in 2019, you may recall that air traffic controllers individually started calling out sick, citing the stress of no paychecks. And that is what is thought to have led to a significant slowdown in air travel into and out of New York. And ultimately, President Trump at that point canceled the shutdown. The question is whether we're now going to see controllers and TSA officers, for that matter, missing paychecks and simply not showing up to work. This is what is really at stake right now. Joe and Savannah, back to you guys.
All right, Tom, thank you.
Some terrifying moments in Northern California when a medical helicopter came crashing down on a busy highway. Happened last night on Highway 50 in Sacramento. All 3 crew members on board were seriously injured. One of them was trapped under the chopper, but more than a dozen people rushed in to help first responders lift part of the wreckage, freeing that person. The helicopter was not carrying a patient at the time. It did not hit any cars on the busy highway. Witnesses said they could see the chopper experiencing some trouble in the sky, but so far, no word on what caused the crash.
Well, today marks 2 years since the Hamas-led October 7th attack on Israel, which launched the war in Gaza. Israel is commemorating the 1,200 people killed and more than 250 hostages taken by Hamas that day, as families of the remaining hostages that push negotiators to make a deal and bring them home. NBC News chief international correspondent Richard Engel is in Jerusalem with the latest on this somber anniversary. Richard, good morning.
Good morning. It was exactly 2 years ago today. In fact, right at this moment, when upwards of 3,000 Hamas militants were on a rampage in southern Israel, going house to house, kidnapping and killing as many Israelis as they could find. Now, the most serious diplomatic effort yet is underway to stop the war that began with that Hamas attack. But the violence has not stopped in Gaza. Across Israel this morning, there were somber gatherings to mark the moment 2 years ago when several thousand Hamas terrorists killed more than 1,200 Israelis and kidnapped around 250, including women and children. In southern Israel, they paid respects to the more than 370 victims murdered at the Nova Music Festival. Gal Gilboa Delal was at the festival with his brother Guy. They were leaving in separate cars when suddenly Hamas swooped down and began shooting and launching grenades. The brothers were separated, and Guy was dragged into Gaza.
I keep thinking about the moment he didn't go in my car, how things could have gone differently. And even there, I was speaking with God the whole time. I was telling him, take me and save my brother.
But on this day of pain and remembrance, hopes for diplomacy are rising. In Egypt, President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, are pushing talks to implement the president's peace plan. The people of Gaza are also waiting. Local medical officials say more than 67,000 have been killed by Israeli attacks there. This was Gaza 2 years ago, and this is what's left of Gaza today. Trump's plan would drive Hamas from power and free the 48 hostages Hamas is still holding, 20 believed to be still alive, including Gal's brother, Guy.
Is there a way you could even summarize what these 2 years have been like?
Every day is a new process of losing your hope and getting them up again. We only have one goal. We only care about bringing back Guy and the hostages back. And for that, we stay strong and we keep fighting. Just hope this nightmare will end soon, and I will see him again.
President Trump is sounding optimistic.
I think we're going to have a deal.
And even as this diplomacy continues, so does the fighting. Hamas, it appears to mark this anniversary, fired several rockets from Gaza into Israel. They didn't cause any casualties, and Israel is carrying out its attacks still every day in Gaza, including today by air, land, and sea. Savannah?
All right, Richard, thank you.
The CDC is now out with its own guidance outlining who should get an updated COVID-19 booster this year.
It recommends that people who are younger than 65 consult with a doctor or pharmacist before getting the vaccination. Now, some experts warn that could discourage people from getting the shot and then compromise herd immunity.
For more, let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Dr. Patel, good to have you with us. So what exactly did the CDC recommend yesterday, and how could that impact our ability to get the latest COVID vaccine?
Yeah, if you're an American and you're looking at the CDC guidance and you're a little confused, you're not alone. So yesterday, the CDC put out their official statement that said that basically everyone who gets a COVID vaccine should undergo what we call shared decision making. I can just briefly tell you what that means is that you should set aside time and talk with your doctor, myself, and others to see whether or not the risks or benefits apply to you, meaning, is it better for you to get a COVID vaccine? And as you mentioned, this is creating just a bit of confusion, especially if you're under 65. But I'm here to tell you right now that we always engage in talking to people about vaccines. We never actually force anyone to take a vaccine. So even health professionals are a bit confused about what changed. But that's the blanket guidance. Anyone who wants a vaccine can get one, but you should undertake it after a conversation with your doctor.
Before the CDC's announcement, 26 states had already set their own COVID shot guidance. It is broader than the federal government. How common is that for like a state to issue their own health standards, but then there's this federal guidance, and where does that leave doctors in decision making?
Yeah, it's very uncommon. You do not see states taking such a massive departure. And by the way, these are not just states of a certain political leaning. These are all sorts of states. And actually, I did a tally before coming on today. The majority of states have put in language that are allowing for people to get shots generally without a prescription. There are a handful of states like Utah, West Virginia, Georgia, Florida, where unfortunately it might be a bit harder. You probably would need a prescription. And I'm encouraging people who are listening to this to actually ask their doctor for a paper prescription, because we can send things electronically. Sometimes they don't get to the right pharmacy. That pharmacy doesn't have the vaccine. Get a paper prescription in that situation. But it is highly unusual, Savannah, and it's creating a precedent that could make it even more confusing to get just more than just the COVID shot.
Dr. Patel, real quickly, what is the concern if one state has a significantly higher vaccination rate than one next to it?
Yeah, the virus knows no state boundaries. So you can see a lot of people vaccinated in one population and a neighboring state with a lower vaccine rate and a higher uptick in cases of COVID or even other respiratory diseases. And unfortunately, might not be enough immunity even in that state with access to cover the community of that state. So you could see widespread infections, not in pockets, but across the United States. Bottom line, if you're 6 months or above, you too can and should get the COVID vaccine. Talk to your doctor.
Now, weather now with meteorologist Rafael Miranda.
That's right, Raf. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, we're dealing with the last warm day here across the Northeast and the East Coast. Maybe the last 80-degree day for quite some time. We have a cold front that's going to bring a big change. It's also bringing some intense rainfall this morning. That could cause some travel delays in the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. Here's a look at the radar. Rain spreading towards the east slowly, so watching out for a little bit of flooding potential there in places like Kentucky. We've had showers and thunderstorms throughout the morning around Chicago, now moving towards Indianapolis as well. Now that front eventually makes its way towards New York City, Philadelphia, Boston as well. That's going to be tonight into tomorrow morning, that rain spreading east again. And this is Wednesday, 8 a.m., a soaker of a commute. Watch out for difficult travel from places like New England down towards the Atlantic. Eventually, though, this front does push away. So by tomorrow afternoon, the rain is largely gone. The drought, of course, is something we've been tracking for the past couple of months. It's been very intense across the Northeast and New England especially. Unfortunately, we're looking for that drought to expand and continue for much of the southern plains into the Ohio Valley. But we are looking for improving drought conditions over the next couple of months in New England. Of course, the fall foliage season is here, and the drought has been playing a role in that. You can see we're seeing colors approaching peak levels now in New England, also out west. But the drought has impacted lots of stress on the trees. They're dropping the leaves earlier, and the color not as vibrant as it could be. Turning our attention to the tropics, we're going to be watching this area for development. Development seems likely over the next couple of days. This could become Jerry, our next tropical storm, or maybe even a hurricane. The good news with this storm, like many of the other storms we've seen, could become a hurricane, but it looks like the forecast model track takes this storm to the north of Puerto Rico, maybe affecting the northern Leeward Islands, then eventually curving out to sea away from the East Coast. This is exactly what we want to see in terms of these tracks. We've been lucky so far here in the East Coast, but tropics are still busy, and that continues through November, of course.
This year it's been like there's a shield up, and everything keeps like deflecting off of it.
We'll take that to high-pressure shields.
Exactly.
So true. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the latest state to take legal action against one of the world's most popular gaming platforms, Roblox.
First, after the break, we've got the very latest on that urgent rescue operation unfolding on the slopes of Mount Everest. We're going to take you overseas next. Back now with an update on the operation to rescue more than 200 hikers who've been stranded on the face of Mount Everest for days now. Heavy snowstorm trapped those hikers on Everest's eastern side over the weekend. Video showed people shoveling snow out of their tents while others waited in a line through the snowstorm in poor visibility. State broadcaster in China says so far nearly 350 hikers have safely traveled down to a rendezvous point in a nearby town in China. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer joins us now from Beijing with the latest. So, Janice, we know that hikers were stranded on the Tibetan side of Everest. What have we heard from officials there, and just what more can you tell us about these rescue attempts?
Well, Joe, we're not hearing a lot, actually. It's been well over 24 hours since we last had information from officials. Government controls in Tibet mean it's hard to get updates, and the area is closed off to foreign journalists. But what we know is that more than 300 Chinese rescue personnel, joined by villagers, were heading up to the area where 2 hikers were stranded. But the snow is deep, about 3 feet, and covering the trail. This is according to the hikers we've spoken to who've made it down. And time is a factor. While most of the hikers were prepared for being at 16,000 feet, this was a freak storm. And this was a system that brought strong winds, heavy rain, and this relentless snow, taking even experienced hikers by surprise. So they're cold, they're wet, they're stuck, and they're facing the risk of hypothermia. And there were other areas in Western China that were affected by the same storm system, with reports of one hiker dying of exposure, according to Chinese state media. Joe?
So, Janice, my understanding is this is not climbing season, right? So tell us what these hikers are doing and just what some of the biggest challenges are in now trying to get them home safely.
Yeah, to clarify, the people stranded, the ones we're talking about, are not climbers headed for the summit of Mount Everest on either the Tibet or the Nepal side. That window for the climbing season and Everest descents is more so in the spring, usually around the end of May. The weather this time of year is cool, typically clear, making it a popular time for hikers to trek along the valleys and the slopes. It's also been a week-long national holiday here in China, so the trails were particularly busy when this storm hit. Yes, hikers will reach certain altitudes. 16,000 feet is still halfway up the mountain. So altitude sickness and changing weather conditions are still very much factors. Chinese rescue teams are known for being organized and being able to scale up. But on the Tibet side, the roads only go so far. So the rescuers are going up on foot. They're using yaks, horses, and drones to locate people. But this is a slow process in heavy snow in order to reach these hikers and get them back to safety. Joe?
Yaks and drones. Incredible. All right, Janice, thank you so much. Appreciate your reporting. We want to bring in some American hikers now. Jason Wardle, Tyler Olson, Jimmy Knight, and Anna Vega. There you see all 4 of them there. They've all made that difficult trek back to safety. We're grateful you're all okay and can chat with us here. Tyler, if you don't mind, let me start with you. Describe where you guys are right now and just what these last 2 days have been like for you.
Well, the last 2 days have just been coming down the mountain. It was a little bit miserable at first, but we've been getting warmer as we're coming down. We're in a little town called Padine right now, in a little tea house. So we just have a little warmth area. We're in a common area in the little tea house that we're in right now.
I bet tea has never tasted so good to warm you guys up. I mean, Jason, talk about that decision when you realized you just needed to turn around and not go any farther. What played into that decision?
Yeah, so we just kept hiking up. It started out as rain as we were hiking, and it was just fine. But it turned into snow, and we prepared to deal with a little bit of snow. You know, sometimes that's to be expected. We knew the weather could be notice, so we were prepared for that. So we kept going up, and we got to about 6 miles from the Everest base camp. And then we started hearing reports of some people that had come down saying, don't go up. It's really bad up there. People are stranded. The tea house that we were planning on staying in, the next one, we heard reports that the roof was starting to collapse under the weight of the snow. We're from Utah, and so we're used to the greatest snow on earth, the really light powdery snow. But this was a heavy, dense cement-like snow that just collapsed in a lot of the roofs of the little tea houses, the little hotels. And so we just heard of that, and we didn't want to add to the misery that was already happening. And so we made the wise decision to turn around and go back down to a lower elevation.
And no doubt you're grateful for making that decision. I mean, Anna, remove the blizzard, and it's hard enough to do some of these climbs. I mean, the altitude alone can make it tough. Talk about how you and just all the other hikers have managed to stay safe so far.
Honestly, I really chalk it up to we hired amazing guides. We had amazing guides with us, and they were in communication with people from farther up the whole time and farther down. And they really were the ones to make the final call. They left it up to us, but they did make the final call of we don't recommend going up further. And so we are lucky we turned around when we did. I feel like if we would have gone up any farther, we would have been stuck up there a while, like all those other hikers.
Jimmy, what's next for you all? Do you think you'll return anytime in the near future?
Hell no. No, it was an adventure. It was a lifetime experience that I'll never forget, but it's something I never want to go through again. But it was something I'll never forget, and it was something that, will always bind us as friends, and being able to go through something so traumatic together, but ultimately overcoming it and seeing it as a precious memory we'll always value, that we came through this together.
No doubt you have a story to share. Love to see the smiles on all four of your faces. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us this morning, and get home to Utah safe.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right. Coming up, she was the creative force behind one of the fashion world's most exclusive handbags.
Yeah, now a new tell-all book is giving us the full story of the life of an icon, Jane Birkin, It Girl. I am chatting with its author. That's coming up next.
Back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with the Supreme Court's decision to reject an appeal request from Ghislaine Maxwell. NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor joins us with that and more. Sahil, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. We begin today in politics with the U.S. Supreme Court rejecting a challenge by Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell to her criminal conviction. That means the 3 counts and the 20 years she was hit with will stay in place. Maxwell's lawyers said they were deeply disappointed in the move, but said her fight isn't over. The move comes in the midst of a heated battle here in Washington over whether to release files pertaining to Epstein's sex crimes. Meanwhile, in Texas, the second-term Congressman Wesley Hunt is jumping into an already contested Republican primary for the U.S. Senate, challenging the incumbent GOP Senator, John Cornyn. The primary includes the state's Attorney General, Ken Paxton, in a contest in the red state where Democrats believe they have an outside chance if the 2026 environment moves their way. In a statement, Hunt saying, quote, "The U.S. Senate race in Texas must be about more than a petty feud between 2 men who have spent months trading barbs," end quote. The move rankled the GOP campaign arm, which is backing Cornyn, and accuses Hunt now of putting personal ambition over protecting the Republican House majority. And back here in Washington, President Trump says an Ultimate Fighting Championship event already slated to take place at the White House will now happen on June 14th, which happens to be the president's 80th birthday. He made that announcement in a speech in Norfolk to mark the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Navy, which is coming up. And that is a look at what's making news in politics this morning. Back to you, Joe.
All right, Sahil, thank you.
Well, a new mental health initiative has taken shape inside New York City public schools. So get this, every school nurse will now take part in suicide prevention training. It's been developed by the JED Foundation, that is a leader in this space. The goal is to give nurses the tools to recognize warning signs and get help for at-risk youth. The move comes as a recent mental health survey on New York City teens shows nearly half of those teens reported experiencing depressive symptoms. 1 in 4 say they wanted help, but they did not get it. Joining us now for more on this is Dr. Tony Walker. He's JED's Senior Vice President of School Programs and Consulting. We're also joined by Gail Adman. She is the NYC Office of School Health's Assistant Commissioner. Good morning to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I love the JED Foundation. I am a big supporter, love to be involved, and I just think what you're doing here is so cool. Dr. Walker, I'll start with you and just talk about what led JED to think, this is an area we need to focus on. Because for people who don't know, you talk to college campuses, you talk to high schools, you kind of go out and find places that need structure put around it to get some help. Why nurses? Why New York City?
Exactly. Well, as you said, the JED Foundation is a national nonprofit organization that focuses on protecting the mental health of youth and preventing suicide. We were founded in 2000 by Phil and Donna Satow, who lost their youngest son, Jed, to suicide when he was a sophomore in college. And so it's our mission. So this is exactly what we do. We work with colleges, universities, high schools, districts across the country to help them build comprehensive systems of support to protect mental health. Now, this program in particular was formed because we know that nurses are a vital part of a mental health care team at a school, but oftentimes overlooked, right? When you think about mental health, oftentimes you think of school counselors and school psychologists, but sometimes the nurse gets left out. But yet they're one of the folks that students actually go to nurses sometimes first before they go to anybody else when they're experiencing a potential sign of distress.
Gail, I think it's such a smart point that it's sort of like a first line of defense when it comes to something like this, understanding that something's wrong. I mean, gosh, I remember I was a big nurse's office kid, but it's more like to get Advil for a headache, to get a Band-Aid, to like call your mom, and not like deeper discussions like this. And it obviously takes the right preparation to step into that type of care rather than just the like first aid type of medical care. Right. Can you get a little bit tactical about what this program looks like, what this training means for nurses?
So it's about expanding services and enhancing care, right? So our school nurses, over 1,600 school nurses, were trained in partnership, right? And so that better allows our nurses to identify students with mental health concerns, assess their risk using a suicide screening tool, and also working with the larger school community, expanding that care network in the school, right? So although nurses are not behavioral health experts, they are a valued adult and a part of that school community. And as Tony said, many times nurses are at the front line of mental health issues. We're the first line of defense, for lack of a better term. And so when students come in, the nurses not only prioritize their physical health, right, dealing with diabetes, asthma, et cetera, but we also prioritize their mental health, which is a key component. And the city has invested valuable time and resources into the students' mental health.
And I understand already, Dr. Rucker, 375 New York City public school nurses have completed this course. Are we seeing impact so far?
Yeah, 1,600 school nurses have completed the course already. And actually, we're going through a second wave of refresher training and training new nurses right now. The plan is absolutely to continue to grow and scale this program. It's been tremendously successful. And actually, we just recently announced at the JED Foundation that we have officially partnered with the Arizona Department of Education to bring this same kind of course statewide in Arizona. And of course, we hope to broaden our reach to as many schools and districts as we can to get nurses this really valuable information that could potentially save lives.
What kind of difference do you think it makes, Gail, for a student to know that they could walk in, or just the difference in support that they could feel, that this is something that's able to be accessed in a successful and responsible way right in that nurse's office?
Right. So students have to know that they're not alone, right, in this mental health crisis. And so in addition to training over 1,600 nurses, we have also on site over 230 school-based mental health clinics on site where they can access mental health professionals on site. In addition, we have over 5,000 guidance counselors and social workers in the schools. Each school has a crisis intervention team where we have mental health trained professionals that are there to support our students with any mental health crisis they may have. And of course, we have 988, right? So if you or anyone that you know, especially our youth, are experiencing any mental health concerns, they can text or call 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where a trained professional will be there to support our students.
Absolutely. There's that graphic right there. Also, just you mentioned Arizona. I mean, is the hope here that this could be scaled nationally?
Yes, absolutely. Right. As we've been saying, nurses play such a vital role in potentially helping to screen and assess, recognize when they might be experiencing suicidal ideation and potentially get them to life-saving care. So in our opinion, this should be in every single school and district in the country.
Dr. Tony Walker, Gail Adman, thank you both so much. I think it's an incredible program, so smart, kind of like this low-hanging fruit almost to just do something that could have this big difference. Hopefully we do see it roll out across the country.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that so much. And by the way, let's pull up one more time. If you or anyone you know is struggling, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is just 988.
Important conversation there. Coming up, retirement rumors swirling around LeBron James this morning. The social media message that's got basketball fans buzzing just days before the start of the NBA season. That's next on Morning News Now. Welcome back. Let's get to some of the morning's biggest financial headlines. OpenAI is focusing on apps in its latest update to ChatGPT.
CNBC's Frank Collins joins us now with that and other Wall Street news. Hey, Frank, good morning.
Hey, good morning again to both of you. So OpenAI is making it easier for users to link with third-party apps such as Spotify and Zillow within ChatGPT. This new feature called Talking to Apps was unveiled at OpenAI's Developers Conference yesterday. Users can now ask to create a music playlist, and ChatGPT will connect with Spotify to make suggestions, or you can look up a home in a specific neighborhood in Zillow. Instagram is also launching an awards program for top creators, recognizing those who are shifting culture and breaking barriers. The panel of judges include Instagram head Adam Mosseri, director Spike Lee, and designer Marc Jacobs. The winners will receive a physical custom ring and a digital golden ring on their profile. They'll also be able to design a custom like button. Kentucky is now the latest state to file a lawsuit against Roblox. The state's attorney general accusing the gaming and social media platform of knowingly creating a playground for predators to distribute offensive and abusive materials to children. He also alleges Roblox has failed to implement basic safety controls to protect child users. Louisiana sued Roblox back in August. The company has not responded to any requests for comment. Back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Frank.
An iconic pride symbol in Florida is now gone. You might recognize this rainbow crosswalk on Ocean Drive in Miami Beach. Well, earlier this week, after a long court battle, a group of protesters watched as that landmark was wiped away. Danielle Cadeau from our South Florida affiliate, NBC6, has more.
Brick by brick, FDOT workers removed Miami Beach's rainbow crosswalk from Ocean Drive Sunday night, a walk that, to many, was a symbol of pride and resilience.
This is the story of people's lives, people who have suffered decades of injustice, of inequality, of discrimination, and that we overcame that. And that was the story being told by these bricks. We can't lose that.
Miami Beach Commissioner Alex Fernandez was one of more than a dozen people who held signs across the street.
Beach, forever proud.
Protesting the removal, which he says came without warning.
All of a sudden, all of these FDOT trucks showed up, an army of workers, heavy machinery, all of a sudden, no notice to our city.
On Friday, the city lost its appeal to keep the crosswalk. In August, FDOT ordered cities to remove pavement art used for social, political, or ideological messages or lose state funding. FDOT says removing the rainbow crosswalks are about safety and having consistent roadways. We reached out to FDOT for a statement but didn't hear back.
Miami Beach, forever proud.
Large crowds gathered around the intersection, some angry, others hurt.
This represents blood, sweat, and tears. I literally worked so hard on the sidewalk for many years and struggled to come out here and perform and share my art and share my craft. So it tears my heart to see it go away.
The gay lesbian community has contributed so much to Miami Beach over so many years. This is a terrible abuse of power.
Jamina Piazzetta has lived in Miami Beach for 35 years and works as a tour guide.
We were like, no, no, no.
She says she was giving a tour at the crosswalk when crews showed up.
It hurts. I was giving a tour. I was with 4 people and I was telling the history, and suddenly the trucks arrived.
Rainbow flags were hung above the crosswalk hours before the removal began in protest.
Miami Beach will forever be proud. You can strip away the crosswalk. You won't strip away the values that run in the people of Miami Beach.
Daniela Cadeau, NBC6 News. All right, well, most people might know Jane Birkin for her effortless style, her chic persona, really, of course, the inspiration for one of the world's most coveted designer bags, the Hermes Birkin. But a new biography out today is telling the full story of the real woman behind the fashion icon, diving deep into Birkin's past to give the fullest picture yet of her life. We are so lucky that we're joined by the author of It Girl, The Life and Legacy of Jane Birkin, Marissa Meltzer. Thank you so much for being here. Good morning.
I'm so happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you. We loved when you came by for your extremely buzzy book that was just such an incredible look behind the scenes at Glossier, a company that a lot of people also know.
Yeah.
So tell us, you were working on that. You said you took like a week off. You jumped in on this one. Why Jane Birkin? What drew you to her?
I mean, we all know the name Birkin,
yes,
but through the bag. And there's a woman behind it. And, you know, she'd always been sort of celebrated in her life as a muse, but that's two-dimensional. And I knew that there was someone to bring to life behind the images of her in chic photos or as the woman who, you know, was behind the most famous bag in the world.
Totally. I think also, and you tackle this, it's like she's thought of maybe as like a muse.
Absolutely.
But there's more than that. It's not that she was just this like pretty woman on a pedestal. There was more going on, and that's what you explored.
Exactly. She was really smart, really insightful. She was a great artist in some of, you know, the most famous films of the past century, at least in Europe. And she, you know, had daughters and family and life of her own. And I really thought it's kind of a larger question that everyone has to tackle, which is how do we want to be remembered?
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about the research here. Oh, you poor thing, had to spend all this time in Paris. How great was that, and how did it enhance your work?
Yeah, I mean, I took my dog and 2 giant suitcases and flew to Paris, and it's like twist my arm, right? Go to Paris for a few months. And I really immersed myself. I mean, part of it was going to things like costume archives and magazine archives, but also things like going by her old apartments and going to where she was sadly buried and, you know, seeing movies and, you know, walking my dog along the Seine. I have a bulldog, she had bulldogs, so it was a fully immersive experience, but it was great. Some of the best months of my life, but I also worked around, you know, around the clock, but the best kind of work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's so interesting is just with this example, you immerse yourself in Paris and in French culture, which I think a lot of people associate her with. She was actually British. Talk about like that sort of connection there.
Yeah, she was born and raised in London, and she actually was a key face of the kind of swinging 60s movement, along with like Twiggy and, you know, some of those people that we know. She was in the movie Blow Up, which is probably the most kind of known movie of that era, and was kind of an it girl, a girl on the scene. And then after a very bad marriage, she got offered a part in a comedy in France and was sort of like, I need to get out of here. I'm going to take this role. And then she never moved back. She fell in love with a man in the city and spent the rest of her life there. Very romantic.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And the way that you chronicle the relationships is really neat. In like 15 seconds, what would you like a reader to remember about her legacy? Take away from this book.
That it's okay to be a little crazy, a little carefree, and that everyone has hidden depths to them. I think in this era of social media, when we're all a little bit two-dimensional and flattened by our highlight reels, this is something she was dealing with 40 years ago. So I think there's a lot to learn.
Really good. Love that. Marissa, thank you so much. Congratulations on the book. It Girl, you see the cover behind us. It's out now. Thank you so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.